there are two techniques for observing the rising and the setting of these objects. One is to use natural horizon markers, distinctive qualities to the horizon, and then you choose your site very carefully so that where the sun or the moon or the planets or the stars, whatever you're interested in, where they rise will coincide with some distinctive moment on the horizon, a little peak, a little notch, whatever it might be, which hopefully won't change over a long period of time, and typically doesn't. And the other technique is to, once you start constructing buildings, to embed that knowledge in the architecture. Open doors, line up walls. And what you do when you create those, because even the natural horizon markers, while you're not creating the natural horizon, you're choosing the site and the perspective. So you've created this context to watch it in. You create a memory now that's larger than just your observation in your personal life. You create a memory of that event, and it can be taught to other people. Go here, stand here at this time, and you'll see, come over here, stand here, and watch the sun. And when it reaches that point, you have so many days before this is going to happen. So you can teach a new timekeeper. You can have an apprentice and teach them the whole process of where you go, and different times of the year, and what you look for, and what days are important and what days aren't. And you become the timekeeper, and then you become the liaison between the everyday person, the other people in the village, in the culture, and those celestial happenings. You become the voice, the one who says. You become the clock. You become the calendar, the timekeeper. In many cultures, this is sacred. Typically, there'll be a place somewhere near the village where the sun watcher will go, usually for the sunrise, sometimes for the sunset. And there may be other places that mark the sun at different times of the day, a midday marker where the sun comes down through a shaft or between boulders and plays on some petroglyphs or something like that. All of these are techniques that, it's not unique to the Southwest. They are not unique to the Southwest. We see them all over the world. And these individuals in the villages still exist. And at Zuni, this one of the sun watching people, priests, because they often were priests. These are sacred activities to a great extent. It was called Pequan. He's not the only sun watcher office that we know of as at Zuni, but he was one. And he would have brought on board when he was young a young man to be his apprentice. As he, the sun watcher himself, got older, he would bring on a young boy. Usually, to our knowledge, it's always been a boy, but that doesn't mean that that's correct. For whatever reason, we don't know. My knowledge of this is based more on reading and research, and while I've met a few people whose job it is, or purpose it is, more than a job, to be a sun watcher, we don't sit down and discuss, hey, how do you do it, and what, all this. So I have this very general sense that you bring an apprentice on, and it's been said that it takes nearly a decade to learn the whole process. And so that's what you're becoming. You're becoming that sun watcher. And it's not just something hey, on Saturdays when you're not doing anything, come on over and this becomes a function, a very important function in the village. And so you must put all of your energies into that and be very faithful to it. As I said earlier, you become the liaison between, if we're talking about the sun, but other aspects of the cosmic rhythmic patterns, you become the liaison between those and the people. You become the conduit. So, very important. There are prayers, there are narratives, there are places to go, there are all kinds of things, esoteric knowledge that you're going to be ingesting, absorbing, and then you become that. And I do know of the history of one Pequan. When he was given the job, it took him 8 or 9 years. He almost got kicked out of the office. But he kept at it and he got it eventually. Because you always have backups. You just rely on one person and he turns out to, it's not really his thing, or, wasn't chosen properly, or something happens and he just can't do it. You've got to have backups. And he managed to finally get it together. That office of Pequon is said to have died out in the 50s when the last Pequon, for whatever reason, and I've never been able to find out what that reason is, did not train an apprentice. Maybe he was younger and hadn't chosen an apprentice yet. Maybe it just didn't manage to happen. I don't know. But Pequon no longer is a part of the Zuni activities. But there are others there that watch the sun. And I had one man tell me that every village, and there were 20, if we count 20 villages, and that's kind of an arbitrary thing to say, villages, tribes, but you've got 20 Pueblo groups. You've got one in Arizona, you've got 19 in New Mexico, and I was told a few years back, may still be true, that there was only one village, one tribe, one group, who no longer has a sun watcher. Now, they don't need them. They have their clocks and computers. They know how to tell time, just like the rest of the world. They're as savvy as anybody else. But these traditions are important. And I think that they're important because they remind the people that we are connected. Observation, the experiential aspect of our relationship with these rhythmic patterns is very important. And if you just rely on a watch and that's all, or a calendar hanging on your wall, your experience is becoming more and more diluted, more and more insulated. And these people have strong traditions of being connected to the rhythmic pattern. I mean, that's one of the things that makes them stand out in our culture, is that they remind us, the rest of us, whoever the rest of us are, that you've got to tie yourself in. You've got to connect to the rhythmic pattern. So they're very important to the people today, and they should be important to everybody in the world.